Hello, and welcome to today's episode of What's My Tagline? I'm your host, Carol Flagg. On this show, we put the microphone in front of a variety of industry experts to discuss their roles, insights, and ideas on marketing, PR, branding, messaging, social media, and other related topics. You can learn more about the show on the program page on healthcarenowradio.com, and be sure to follow me on Twitter at Carol Flagg and connect with me on LinkedIn. My guest today is Robert Kelen, Director of Marketing for CentralLogic. The company recently hosted AO2, an annual summit on healthcare access and orchestration, now in its 11th year. This year, amidst COVID-19, the event went virtual, and Robert is here today to talk about the challenges and the opportunities of moving AO2 to a virtual environment. Hi, Robert. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. And where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from the shiny new CentralLogic headquarters that just had their grand opening today in downtown St. Paul, Minnesota.
Oh, and were there people there and they were 6 feet apart and masks, or are you the only one?
If I showed you the view, you might think I'm the only one, but in this corner of the building, yes, I am. There's, I think, about 10 of us here today, and we actually just got some new CentralLogic masks that everyone can wear, but since I'm sitting by myself, I'm not donning one currently.
Yeah. That's like the brand awareness and marketing comes in all forms, and now it does come in masks.
That's right.
Well, congratulations on the grand opening. That's in a COVID year. Not a lot of probably new office space being opened right now.
Signing a lease for an entire floor of a building in the middle of COVID got us in the newspaper here. So yeah, big deal.
Or could have made the national news, but yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for joining me today on a obviously an important day with the grand opening of CentralLogic in your new offices. So that's great. So before we talk a little bit about your journey and a little bit about CentralLogic and your recent AO2 conference, let's address the first question I ask all my guests, which is, if you had to describe yourself as a tagline, what would it be?
Well, I don't know if you have a full appreciation for how difficult a question that is, but
I've heard.
Yeah, I thought a lot about it because, I don't know, you feel sort of like it might be your epitaph. Since you gave me the out to think of it in business terms, I tried not to take too much into account with it in terms of my entire life, but was trying to convey simply what's a lot of complicated things rolled into one, and it's hard to simplify yourself. I mean, I asked another friend and colleague what qualities they thought were important, and they talked about being strategic and getting results and being creative and things like that. And it's, without trying to put every keyword in there, it's hard to come up with something simple. And so I settled on just 2 words in hopes that kind of contained a lot in a little space, which is uncommonly steady.
Uncommonly steady. Well, first of all, I think given the year that we've had so far, right? I think being uncommonly steady through the past 8 or 9 months is a great quality to have. And what makes you uncommonly steady?
Well, I wanted to sort of both convey the kind of dependability and reliability and getting results, but also bringing a fresh perspective and kind of the creative and thinking outside the box. So I don't know if you can really convey all that in 2 words, but I thought at least some of the points might be encapsulated there.
So tell us a little bit about who you are in your journey to CentralLogic. Kind
I like to say that if you had to try and draw a line between all the various points of things I've done in my career, they're kind of, the common thread is that there have been multiple things at the intersection of marketing and technology, whether that's bringing technology to marketing or marketing technology. I've done both. I've worked at a bunch of hardware companies, software companies, but really marketing has been a common theme and technology has been a common theme. And so that's a common thread, I would say. And healthcare is a bit of a new departure for me, but something I've been interested in for a long time. When I was looking around at different opportunities a few years ago, I looked in two different areas. One was healthcare and one was HR related businesses, not to be in HR, but like an HR software company, just because I think healthcare and HR are things that touch every person, and they are, I think, are just opportunities to really do interesting things in a way that touches everyone's life. And so healthcare, especially in this country, I think has a lot of opportunities for improvement. And so for me, that was an interesting challenge that was really kind of, I guess, personal and kind of a marketing challenge and just an interesting space to be in. And it's, healthcare is such a huge part of the U.S. economy. And like I said, it needs help. So being there, trying to address those challenges, I think is exciting.
Yeah, it does need a wee bit of help. For some, especially, that's where we really need people who are uncommonly steady, because, I think that's going to help solve some of the issues. Although I think that, this area that you and I occupy, which is, health IT, is certainly an exciting part of healthcare to be in. When we talk about, there are regulatory issues and whatnot, but be that as it may, there's innovation and there are things going on. And even seen it during the pandemic, the amount of, new technology that is coming out of this and will be coming and arising from COVID in the next few years is kind of astounding.
Yeah, it's definitely, these are challenging times, but interesting and exciting times to innovate. Actually, we did an interesting listening tour kind of in the middle of COVID with a bunch of our clients. And I would say pretty much every client, in addition to talking honestly about the challenges they were facing, also saw the opportunity to basically innovate and hopefully come out stronger on the other end of this. Yeah. And, telemedicine is a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's something we've talked about for years, but COVID made it happen in the blink of an eye when it might have taken, I don't know, a dozen more years at the pace it was going.
Yeah, I think interoperability is probably similar to that, just, something that's been talked about and worked on and certainly not new to the industry, but all of a sudden, COVID, kind of made the fact that we didn't have interoperability, that big gap and shortfall, if we'd had it when the pandemic broke. How long have you been at CentralLogic?
I think it's been about 18 months.
Oh, so half of it spent during COVID. Wow.
It's interesting to look back where we saw the year going kind of January, February, and where it's taken us since then. We certainly couldn't have envisioned where we'd end up.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did, when we hit March for sure. So, I think that let's talk about we're kind of at the heart of what I wanted to chat with you today about, which is this conference called AO2, and I'm saying that correctly. Hopefully, I'm not mispronouncing.
You are saying it correctly.
I don't know. Maybe some people go, "Is that A02?" But I'm pretty sure it's AO2.
No, the O is key because the A and the O stand for access and orchestration.
Right, exactly. So first of all, talk a little bit about the genesis of AO2. What exactly that means, that particular, acronym that you've created this conference around, and, what people who attended it in the past, and we're going to talk about this year during the pandemic show, but in the past, what attendees got out of that conference?
So this would have been the 11th annual, I believe, what we were then calling Patient Flow Summit. So for the last 10 years, we had a Patient Flow Summit. It was an in-person event, and it really dealt with patient flow and operational challenges within a health system, particularly as they center around transfer centers and transfer operations. And this year, we really had the goal of expanding, I like to say, up and out. So up meaning to beyond the operational and kind of managerial staff of maybe transfer operations, but up to more executive and strategic roles, and out in terms of beyond patient flow and kind of breaking outside the four walls of the hospital to really look at the strategic perspective of a health system, and what does it mean to, load balance within a system, or basically bring systemness to a system and to operate as one. And so we had those twin challenges, and so rebranding seemed really important to us this year. And this, of course, predates COVID, but we really had the goal of kind of, like I said, going up and out, also rebranding, extending. It's not a CentralLogic conference. CentralLogic puts on the conference, but it's really meant to be an industry thought leadership event. And so kind of we had all those challenges all at once, and then COVID at the same time. So as we shifted from the expanded mission of the conference and the rebranding, we also had to switch from a physical event to a virtual event. So we had a lot of things going on all at once.
Yeah. And who, or if you can, describe like the typical attendee, like who would attend AO? 11 years running is in certainly health IT land is actually quite a long history, right? It's from that perspective. But who, and perhaps it's changed over the years, but who is the typical attendee for AO2?
Well, our primary market is selling to hospitals and health systems to help them improve their transfer operations. And the business that we got founded in as CentralLogic was basically kind of the most challenging patient movement of highly acute interfacility patient transfers, and getting patients the right care in the right place as quickly as possible. And so it could be everything from a director of transfer services to a different roles, operational roles, but also all the way up, and especially this year with a focus on maybe broader strategic issues, I would say chief strategy officers, COOs of health systems, service line, people who manage different service lines within a health system. So it's fairly broad. We had titles up and down and side to side, both with various aspects of a health system.
So you've got this event that has been going on for 10 years. We'll talk about 10 years, growing it into an industry event, sort of this curation process that occurs, right, to grow an event. It doesn't happen overnight, obviously. And then you enter year 11, and we're hit with this pandemic. And all of a sudden, this conference that you've been growing and nurturing for a decade now has to immediately shift and transform to a virtual conference, like every conference actually, right? In our immediate vicinity, they all had to quickly pivot. What were some of the challenges in doing that, in taking this, obviously, a decade-old conference had legs. It had people that I'm sure were regular attendees every single year, and thought leaders and content speakers, and moving it to virtual.
Well, there's all the obvious ones, like a new technology platform to host it. How will you get people there when it's a crowded space? One of the bigger challenges was just one of the key values in coming to the conference was the peer-to-peer networking. And being able to carry that forward in this environment is a lot harder, because, if you're at a physical event, you're talking to people in the hallway, you're, meeting them after or during, and the conversations. I remember at last year's event, I was sitting with people at lunch, and just the connections they were making just while they were eating their salad was amazing. And so it's definitely harder to do that. And I don't think with a virtual event you can fully substitute for that, but hopefully you can at least reach more people, because you don't have to fly somewhere. You don't have to, stay for a few nights, whatever it is. The actual challenge of going somewhere, even in a non-COVID environment, means that it's just open in some ways to fewer people. So if you can squeeze in part of the conference from your desk, wherever you are, that was actually an opportunity that the virtual event created, but obviously there were, like I said, many challenges too.
Yeah, yeah. And you guys, thankfully, because AO2 was in September, it was very recent, obviously. You guys had some time to map out a strategy because you probably knew, maybe not in March, but I would imagine by, June or July that you probably knew by then, certainly, that you were looking at a virtual event.
Well, I won't say that we were dragged kicking and screaming to a virtual event, but I believe we held out hope for a longer time than maybe some thought was realistic, that we would be coming out of COVID in the September timeframe in a way that we would sort of have this perfect event just at the time when it was the right topic at the right time, and people, yes, we could all meet again in Las Vegas like we originally intended.
Oh, I would have been there. My favorite place, no question about that. For a conference, yeah.
Yes. Well, so yeah, we held out hope that it could happen, and then it was sometime in the summer, I can't remember exactly when, we realized, no, clearly that's not going to happen. We have to switch to virtual, and we have to figure out how to make that happen. And so it was a lot of learning as we went, for sure.
Yeah. Interesting too, obviously that opportunity of perhaps expanding the number of attendees and, the ability for an attendee to sort of, pick and choose, what they want to listen to based on their calendar. I know that some of the recordings were made available as well to the people who registered. I think some of the things, it kind of fascinates me because the event was at the very end of September, and obviously there were lots of virtual conferences ahead of that happened, right, over the spring and the summer, and lots of webinars going on right now. And there is some marketers out there that I've talked to that have talked a little bit about like this webinar fatigue and virtual conference fatigue. But my understanding, just based on our email conversation, was that really wasn't your experience.
No, I think there are certainly elements of that, and actually we thought that definitely you open it to a wider audience. We thought free event, really strong keynotes and panels, the sky almost could be the limit, because this was such an amazing opportunity for people to attend. And I think, to your point about fatigue, because there were so many of these available to people, really quality options, and I think a lot of people like us felt the pressure to remove registration fee barriers this year and make it freely available. And so there were a lot of choices. And so I think that we had higher attendance than we would have with a physical event, but there are limits. And I think the competition from other events was certainly a factor in that.
Well, I think that, first of all, I think that the space that you're in, obviously, like you already said, was very timely. But I also think your lineup of keynotes was amazing.
Oh, thank you. We're glad to hear that.
Yeah, no, I really did. Who they were, what they did, what they were talking about. I think there is this fatigue that went on, that's still going on with webinars and virtual events. But I also think that when you put quality programming out there, people respond. So yeah.
Well, and I think one of the choices we made that we've gotten good feedback on, and I think really made for insightful sessions, was to do almost exclusively panel discussions and not to have a single talking head just making a presentation. So it wasn't really like a typical webinar. It was really thought leaders coming together and share and exchange ideas with each other and feed off each other. And I think there were really some interesting discussions that came out of that.
Yeah, it was very, like you said, sort of round table driven. So yeah, exactly. What other things did you learn from taking this virtual that you might be able to employ next year, when you go back to, knock on every piece of wood in front of me, back to an in-conference event, were there any lessons learned that you could actually apply to a live conference?
Well, you certainly have the ability for maybe easier analytics as a result of doing it virtually. You can see when people tuned in, what they tuned in for, how long, what kind of level of attention they had. So hopefully as we study that, we can get a better sense of what resonated with attendees and use that to direct what, as you said, we hope will be a in-person session. It's amazing how, looking ahead, we still have, I think, the same level of uncertainty even with the fall of 2021. Will we be able to do an in-person event? Yeah. Will it have to be virtual? Will it be a hybrid? And maybe we take the best of both and make it available. That way you can have the audience that wants to be there in person and can be, and you can also allow participation from those who can't. So that's kind of what we're contemplating now, and hopefully as we study that, we can kind of get some insights for next year.
Yeah, that hybrid model is kind of interesting to even entertain as well, because then you could like limit in-person attendance and be more aware of social distancing and all the things that you have to do, right? People, check people's temperatures, blah, blah, blah. But allow for, as you said, that expanded audience and attendance that you saw this year with that virtual event.
One of the interesting learnings from a marketing perspective and how you market an event, whether it's virtual or in person, I'd say going into it, we had the idea, or at least I had the idea, that kind of more is more. And we had this incredible, breadth of speakers from different lineup, different walks of life and different backgrounds. And, it was like all the things you could cram into this day. We were kind of trying to promote them all. And then we tried some more narrow marketing just to talk about one session and hopefully reach the audience that cared most about that. And I would say, maybe I shouldn't be so surprised by this, but that was remarkably effective. And so sometimes, the adage about less is more, I think, turned out to be true. And just giving people something that they can more easily latch onto. And so I think as we think about marketing next year's event, or maybe any event that has kind of a wealth of content, that more is more isn't necessarily the best approach.
So that's sort of a, that's one of my things that I do hear a lot, and a lot of that I think stems from, less is more, and versus trying to put everything soup to nuts in an email campaign. And in fact, you and I talked about that too, going back and forth, because in full transparency, we did a couple of email campaigns for you for the event. You have to understand like how much. First of all, what does it look like on a smartphone? What's above the fold? Because people just generally don't get deep into the weeds anymore, on any kind of marketing message, regardless of what it is, whether it's a social media or marketing or, whatever, right? It's just about the headline, the subject line, a few bullet points, and then you've got to grab that attention to get them a little deeper into the weeds there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's good learnings from that for sure.
So what's next for CentralLogic in 2021? Obviously, we're hopefully going to be having the 12th AO2 conference back again live in Las Vegas, or a hybrid model or something else. But what else is in the works?
Beyond the event?
For the company itself and for you.
I'm not sure I can answer the for me question part, but I can, from a company perspective, just the solution that we have in terms of basically helping orchestrate and navigate and kind of elevate the kind of various aspects of along the care continuum and getting patients to the right care in the right place without delay. We thought, and I mean we continue to believe, that there was a great story to be told around all of those points before COVID, but especially in the world we're in now, where health systems are in, maybe precarious is the wrong word, but challenging financial times for health systems, given kind of the year we've had, I'd say that message is even more important than it was pre-COVID. So just because the financial return on investment is so important, and the ability to help a health system acquire new patients and kind of strengthen their margin picture, and really, one of the sessions we had at AO2 that the Health Management Academy led the conversation was, you can't cut your way to success. And the idea of, continuing to shrink and be, reduce costs, that's important, and we've actually seen since then that there are challenges that come out of that in terms of being able to respond when you're stretched so thin. But really growing the top line and bringing in new patients and helping, really focus on growth and patient acquisition is even more important now than it was, or than it's ever been. And so we think that CentralLogic has a really important role in helping health systems kind of move forward from where we are today.
Yeah. Robert, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been great chatting with you.
Well, it's been nice chatting with you. Thanks for having me.
You can learn more about Robert and CentralLogic by visiting www.centrallogic.com. Also, the company's stellar AO2 education efforts continue with AO Tuesday through October. So be sure to check out what's coming up next at ao2summit.com. You can also follow the company on Twitter at CentralLogic. Have an idea or a topic or a guest for this show? Reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, or shoot me an email at carol@hightechanswers.com. Until next time, I'm Carol Flagg, and I want to know, what's your tagline?